Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, December the 8th, 2021. Given the need to practice social distancing during the COVID-19 pandemic, we are holding this meeting remotely through a video conference. The meeting is being recorded. In accordance with the Ontario Regulation 463-97 and new guidelines effective February the 1st, 2021, any meeting of the Board of Trustees and or committee meetings which are open to the public must be live streamed and be available to take questions from the public. The purpose is to foster two-way participation during these meetings. To comply with this, SEAC will be using a Google form, which is attached to each agenda distributed in advance of the meetings and is posted on the HDSB SEAC website page. Questions posed during live stream meetings of SEAC may be answered during that meeting, particularly those related to agenda items, or at a following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of the chair and or vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. Notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question. Any questions that contain language that is hateful or discriminatory will not be considered. So first of all, Lucille, if you could start with a roll call to record who is in attendance, that would be great. And if people could answer yes or present.
Okay, I'm going to start with the trustees. Tracy, I think she's going to be joining us later.
Yes, actually, Trustee L. Harrison is not able to join us for the full meeting. She will be observing through the live stream, and I am taking her place at the meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before you go on, Lucille, Trustee Garrett is similar to Trustee L. Harrison. She may be joining us earlier or later, but if not, I'm here in her place.
Okay, so Joanna, are you present? And Margot, are you present?
We are here.
Okay, I'm going on to the association reps and alternates. Yeah. We can do that to as many people as possible. Galen, Association for Bright Children.
I'm here.
Jen.
I'm here too.
Lisa Cameron.
Present.
Candace Keem.
Present.
Melissa Dockeray.
Present.
Sarah Lansley. Sophia Siddiqui.
I don't see her, no.
Rebecca Heron.
Present.
Allison.
Present.
Diane Van Bosch.
She sent her regrets.
Aaron Sproul.
I'm here.
Kathy Turner.
Kathy informed me that she can't make it. She had to take her son to the ER, unfortunately.
Okay. Now we're moving on to the members at large. James Baldwin.
Present.
Diane Miller.
Present.
And myself. I'm present. And then I'll move on to the staff. Colette.
Good evening.
And Lorna. And
Present.
Sean.
Good evening, everyone.
And I don't have the other staff members on my list, so could they just please identify themselves?
I think that's everyone that's staff tonight. We also have our guests.
And our guests. I'm so sorry.
Michael and Marcel. Yeah.
Mike and Marcel Jacques. Welcome.
Great. Great, thank you. So before we start our meeting, we'll begin by honouring the land. Holton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Atawonderan, the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honour and respect the 4 directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. And in keeping with the intention and spirit of this acknowledgement, we spent last session sharing reflections. Does there anybody who would like to share a reflection at this point in time?
Hi, Allison. It's Candace Keem here from.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to point out at Community Living Burlington, we, for those of you who don't know, we support people with developmental disabilities, and we have a wonderful self-advocates group called the Dreamweavers, and they have taken the initiative and started a winter clothing drive for Indigenous communities in need. So we are collecting new winter clothing, hats, socks, scarves, etc., for Indigenous communities up until December 17th at CLB. So if anybody's interested in donating, want some more information, we're partnering with River Christie White, who's a young man with autism, who is a part of the community, and we're supporting his charity as well. So if anybody has any, wants any further information, just send me an email or give me a call. I'd be happy to answer those questions. Thank you, Allison.
Great, thank you. Okay, so at this time, our first step is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. So are there any modifications or amendments that need to be made? If you could indicate your wish to speak in the chat. Okay, none being seen. Lou, do you want to take note of who'll move and second?
Yeah. I'd like to ask Yalen if she would like to move a motion to approve the agenda. And I will ask Margot to
move. Thank you.
Margot, could you second it?
I will second it. Thank you, Lou.
Okay.
Okay, so with the motion moved and seconded, is there any opposition to the agenda as it stands? None being seen, the agenda is approved unanimously. Next, we have the approval of our November 2nd, 2021 minutes. Again, are there any errors or omissions that need to be brought to our attention? Okay, not seeing any. Lou?
Erin, would you like to move a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure, I would like to move to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
And Joanne, could I ask you to second them?
Actually, I had sent my regrets to that meeting, so you'll need to ask somebody who was present. Thank you.
Jen, could you approve them?
Yes, I second that.
Second them. Thank you.
Okay, great. And does anybody have any opposition to the minutes as recorded? Okay, none being seen, the minutes are approved unanimously. So tonight we have a very exciting and interactive presentation. We're going to start our action items with a special presentation by Michael Jacques, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's the author of Can't Read, Can't Write. Here's my book. Michael wrote this book using speech to text technology on his iPad. Michael is a youth leader and a public speaker on diversity and inclusion. He sits on the Minister's Advisory Council of Special Education and is the board president of Community Living Ontario. We are honoured to have Michael here tonight to talk about his personal journey and his lived experience as a neurodiverse individual. Welcome, Michael. Okay, so we are back into our regular meeting. And at this point in time, we are going to go through item 2.2. As pre-reading, a number of, everybody was provided with letters that we've received to this point from other Ontario School Board SEACs. And we would like to gain SEAC's input as to whether we would like to draft letters in support of some of these requests. So if I start with the first one, there are several letters. We have one from Avon Maitland District School Board. We have one from the Rainbow District School Board, asking for, let me just pull it up, asking for, or writing for their support of Bill 172, an amendment to the Education Statute Law that outlines that fetal alcohol spectrum disorder will be considered as a disability and an exceptionality. So I just wanted to open it up for discussion as to whether this SEAC is interested in putting forward a letter of support for that bill. Are there any comments? Hello, do we have any hands up?
Joanne.
Joanne, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Given what we know about the fetal alcohol syndrome as a disorder and how it impacts on learning and academic success and the attainment of potential, I would be in support of the HDSB SEAC sending a letter in support of the bill. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions, concerns? I'm not seeing my hands at the moment. So, yes. So, yeah.
I think Candace has a hand up.
Candace, yeah. Candace, are you there? Oops. Oh, okay. Can you put that you're in support? Okay, great. Thank you, Candace. Does anybody else have any comments? Yarlene.
I'm also in support of Joanna's motion to support the fetal alcohol syndrome and spectrum disorder that, to amend the legislation. But, I remember I have a question that, I think Joanna or someone brought ADHD was the same and in the same issue that, I'm just wondering, and, should we also, bring the issue that we discussed a couple months ago and also bring our issue and in the letter and, with the support of FASD?
So I think Joanna is going to raise that as a separate issue. So what I'd like to suggest at this point in time is that we call a quick motion. So we have two people. We've got, who we had supporting it. We had, yourself, Yarlene, and we've got, so we've got lots. Does anybody, Candace? Yes, sorry, Candace. We have a motioner and a seconder. Is anybody in opposition to putting forward a letter from HDSB SEAC supporting the bill Let me just find out the number. Bill 172, and supporting our other SEACs in their call for the legislation. At this point, is there anybody who disagrees with that motion? Lucille, are you for or against?
I'm for.
Okay, all right. So at this point in time, I do not see any.
Rebecca has raised a hand.
Can I?
Rebecca?
Sorry, Allison. Can I just clarify something?
Yes.
I am in support, but is what's being asked that the exceptionality go to IPRC like without a psychoeducational?
No.
Okay.
Basically, what our motion would be is that the Special Education Advisory Committee recommends that we endorse Bill 172, the Education Statute Law Amendment that recognizes fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Okay, and so what would then happen is that, I guess with the appropriate documentation, that would then go forward and as an exceptionality, is my understanding. But it would require documentation.
Right. Okay.
Can I add to that, Allison?
Yes.
It currently does live within the exceptionalities, much like ADHD does within one of the existing categories. This bill would require school boards to have a plan to ensure teachers receive training on how to support students with FASD. And it would also require teachers' colleges to include an aspect of their teacher development program to ensure that they have an awareness of FASD and how to support students with that spectrum disorder. And so just for the group's awareness, I would suggest that Halton is leading in this in many ways. We have a collaborative working table with the region of Halton, as well as our coterminous board. And we partner with ROC, the Reach Out Center for Kids, to provide training across the region, as well as to this working table ensures that there's a common understanding across our region and a coordinated service approach for diagnosis and support for families. So we're really honored to be a part of that working table, and particularly in the area of the staff training. Linda Stewart, our manager of psychology, is quite an expert in this area and really contributes to that working table.
Great, thank you. So just to clarify, at this point in time, does anybody have any opposition to SEAC writing a letter of support for Bill, I'm going to check the number again, well, Bill 172? Okay, not seeing any. The motion is passed unanimously that we will write a letter endorsing the amendment to the Act. The second document that came to us, SEAC, from other boards is one from Waterloo Region District School Board, who again are writing to support letters sent by Algoma District School Board, SEAC, and the Durham District School Board, SEAC, with regard to online learning supports and universal design for learning provided by the provincial online resources and platforms. And basically that the province requesting that the province ensure that all materials provided on an online platform and I guess through TVO are accessible in their format. Does anybody have any comments to make regarding those letters that were sent? Okay, not at this time. Does anybody, would anybody agree that a letter should, that we should send a letter in support? Or is that not something that we wish to do? So I'm not seeing any sort of feedback either one way or the other. That being the case, I would suggest that the view would be that it does not seem to be something that RCX feels strongly enough about at this point in time in the pandemic to issue a letter. Is that the case?
I don't feel the need at this time to write a letter of support, but I could be alone, but it doesn't seem to be high on our list at the moment.
And that's the impression I'm getting from the group today. So at this point in time, we will, as we don't have a motioner or a seconder, we will put that on the back burner, and we'll not issue a letter of support in that area. Okay, so just going through the other ones. Then the final one that we received was from the Rainbow District School Board in Sudbury, who had motioned that their board write a letter asking the Minister of Education and the Minister of Health to consider amending the Immunisation of School Pupils Act to include COVID-19 as a designated disease. And they were asking that basically vaccination be mandatory to attend school in Ontario. So does anybody have any comments to make at this time? I'm not sure, perhaps if I could ask Colette, at this point in time, there is no requirement for school children to have proof of vaccine.
So that's correct. And of course, our students under the age of 12 are only now eligible to receive the vaccine. And I think I may have mentioned this last spring around the Immunization of School Pupils Act, ISPA. And when we talk about a mandatory vaccine, and so let's say we'll say it's the measles vaccine, it is on the ISPA list of mandatory vaccines. Students can attend school if they do not have the measles vaccine, but if there's a measles outbreak, they are not permitted to attend school. So public health would order them to stay at home. So, truthfully, that's really what's happening now with COVID, in that when there is exposure in a class, our students who are unvaccinated, so that's most of our elementary students, are required to isolate. And so even though the COVID vaccine is not on the mandatory list, the same strategy that's used in an outbreak of a mandatory vaccine is being employed in current circumstances. So while there may be a value in adding it to the mandatory list, the strategy still wouldn't change in terms of requiring students to isolate if they're not vaccinated.
Okay. So does anybody have any strong feelings about vaccination at this point in time? We are looking at potentially an Omicron, but we don't know whether that will have an impact from our vaccinations or not, or what it's very much an unknown at this point in time. Does anybody have any strong feelings regarding this, or is this again an issue that we put to one side? Lucille.
As a senior, I feel that it's important, but I don't have any kids going to school. I just have grandkids. So, so far the schools seem to have been doing a good job. So, I don't know if public health has something to say about this. How does a vaccine get mandated, Colette? I mean, who makes that decision?
Ultimately, it would be the decision of the government to add it to the legislation, the Immunization of School Pupils Act. It would need to be added to that list of mandatory vaccines in that piece of legislation.
So does anybody else have any other comments at this time? Joanna.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll look to my fellow trustees and Colette for correction if I'm not remembering this correctly. But I believe the former chair of the board did write a letter to the minister recommending that the COVID vaccine, in fact, be added to the ISPA. So we have addressed this issue already through the chair. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So any other comments at this time? Oh, sorry, Erin. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I would say that I support a motion like this. I think that it's a contentious issue, but I think that the more that we can, the silent, significant majority can send messages to our leaders that we need to do as much as we can to get out of this pandemic, that we should do that. So I would support this motion.
Rebecca.
I think I'm going to be outvoted, but I do not support the motion as a parent of a child, 2 children under 10, to have to mandate it at this point.
Okay, Jen.
And I'll join Rebecca in that as well. I think given the information that's already gone through the trustee, to me, it just sounds like it's been tackled in that regard already.
Okay, and Candice?
Yes, I'll agree with Rebecca and Jen as well.
Okay. So at this point in time, do we have sufficient people who would even move forward with a motion on this? I mean, Aaron's expressed his support. Is there anybody else who feels strongly, or we leave it as it is?
I would second Aaron's motion to add it. Yeah.
So we have 2 people who would like to put forward the motion, and so it will go to a vote as to whether we put forward this or whether Aaron, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You could have finished your thought there, but I think specifically what we should be writing to the minister about as a SEAC, to say that the impacts of interruptions in learning and remote learning to students with exceptionalities is even more challenging. That's my view, is that I think it's hard on all students, but it's even more difficult on our kids. So that's my view of the nature of the letter and why it's important that it should come from the SEAC and not just generally from the board.
Okay. So putting forward the motion, Aaron and Lucille have put forward that SEAC issue a letter in support, adding COVID-19 vaccination as a required vaccination for attendance at school. Could I see a show of hands in support? So we have Okay, so I'm just going to go through. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I will vote. So we have 9 votes for. And Lou, you'll have to tell me how many we have as quorum, or how many we have as voting members. But we have 9 votes for.
I'm a bit confused with the trustees who were covering each other. And
Lou, the trustees are here that do the voting right now. So Tracy and I are here.
Okay.
So, okay, so we've got 1 trustee for, 1 not voting. Erin, you're the rep for voice, yeah?
Correct.
Melissa, we have you as the rep for Easter Seals. Diane,
Correct.
you're a member at large. Yarlene, you're for ABC. Lucille, you're a member at large. So we've got both trustees for. Just checking, so we've not got a member from Community Living. Jen, are you from? Just checking which organization you're from.
I'm ABC, so.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So you're second for ABC.
Yeah.
And then we have Lisa, you're from Autism Ontario. Autism?
Yes, Autism Ontario.
Okay, all right. And just Rebecca, which organization are you from, just to clarify?
Halton Down Syndrome Association.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I think based on the votes that we have, and again, I'll confirm, we'll just take down the names and I'll confirm, but at this point in time, we do have a motion that is passed, but I will confirm that. We'll take down all the names. Diane, Yarlene, Lucille, and we will again confirm. Okay, all right. So we'll move on to the next item. So I think those were all the items that were from the other school boards, the information from the other school boards. At this point in time, we'll move on to item 2.3, and I do know that we are rapidly running out of time. In the past, last year, Lucille and I were voted in as chair and vice chair at this point in time. We, wanting to maintain transparency and ensure an equal voice for everybody, wanted to understand if other members of the committee would like the opportunity to sit as either the chair or vice chair. Lucille and I are both willing to stay on, but we are happy to move on if other people would like to take these positions. So we put it out in a letter. If anybody would like to take on or put themselves forward for these roles, or whether prefer to evaluate basically at the end of the school year preparation for September. So I just wanted to open that up to the floor for a brief discussion about whether we want to change over chair and vice chair at this point in time or delay it until the end of the year. Melissa.
Sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, so is your hand up or did you?
Sorry, no, I forgot to put it down.
Okay, all right, that's fine. And Diane, you still got a hand up. Do you want to add? No, and Tracy?
I was just voting previously. I'll take
Okay,
it down.
all right, that sounds great.
Nice to see
So
you.
does anybody want to add it? Does anybody want to stand for chair or vice chair at this point in time? Do we want to change them, or do we want to keep going until the end of the school year? Totally open either way. We just wanted to make sure that everybody's voice was heard at this time.
If you'd like to think about it, that's also okay, because we look at this in the new year in preparation for the vote in May or June.
Right, yeah. So any comments? Okay, Yarlene.
I just wanted to say you two are doing a fabulous job. So I'd like you to stay on. And so that's just my opinion. And because I'm new to SEAC, and but I've thoroughly enjoyed the meeting that hosted and by two of you. So I just hope that you can stay on.
Okay. Well, as I say, we're very happy to stay on right now, but we just wanted to make sure that, this is a transparent and open committee where everybody's voice is equally valuable. So if I'm not seeing any, people who desperately would like to do this right now, we'll push it out until next, probably another 5 or 6 months. And then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, so at this point in time, it is the SEAC discussion and question period. Does anybody have any specific questions or topics that they would like to raise? I believe that, Joanna, you have something you'd like to raise.
Okay, so as I brought forward at the October meeting, it was a question that arose from an email I received from a parent in my community. And it relates to ADHD and it not being formally acknowledged by the Ministry of Education as an exceptionality, which therefore results in it not being specified in our HDSB special education plan. We know that ADHD is a serious neurodevelopmental disorder that is associated with adverse outcomes in physical, psychological, academic, occupational, and social domains. Decades of research clearly have demonstrated that ADHD has a significant impact on learning, academic achievement, and school adjustment. And so by not specifically including it as an exceptionality or acknowledging it as an exceptionality, it may lead to inequitable pathways for how students can access support or accommodation. And I believe it's critical that teachers and other school staff receive appropriate training and have a solid understanding of what ADHD is, how it impacts students' academic success and well-being, and their attainment of their full potential and personal goals. So I would like to recommend that we do advocate to the Minister of Education, and I do have a motion that I would be happy to propose. And we did discuss this in October, and Colette had indicated that there may be an opportunity to learn how this can take place, what kind of advocacy she could do through her group of education staff, or it might be that we just have to advocate on behalf of SEAC, or as SEAC advocate to the Minister of Education. So we were going to discuss this a little bit further, I think, and we're at that point. So I'm bringing it to your attention again, and I'm curious where this group would like to go. Thank you. Well, I'd like to get the conversation started. As the
Executive Director of the Learning Disabilities Association. We deal with students and we support students and families of students with learning disabilities and ADHD. There is a high correlation between learning disabilities and the separate diagnosis of ADHD. They often come together. Sometimes the ADHD diagnosis comes before the LD diagnosis eventually makes its way through the psychological testing, because it is a little bit easier to spot. I strongly agree that ADHD should have its own ability to be defined as an exceptionality. The impact of ADHD on the lives of children, students, adults, youth, seniors is not something that goes away. It is, as Joanna said, it has academic implications, it has employment implications, it has social implications, mental health implications. And I am concerned, and we hear a lot from parents, that the ADHD side needs to come with more training for staff and more support for parents to be able to manage it. It's sometimes the expectation that we see is that if we just put some accommodations in place for a little while, the child will miraculously learn how to overcome their ADHD. That is not the case. This is a long-term disability. And so from my perspective and the perspective of the Learning Disabilities Association, we would strongly be in support of it having its own exceptionality criteria, so that parents do not have to wait to find some other diagnosis that may allow them to access supports other than just the ADHD. Does anybody else have any comments? Yolene.
I'm also in support of, having the ADHD that being identified as a separate exceptionality, and because I believe the early identification and the support and allocation of resources, and it's very crucial, and not only for students but support of the family, and so I think we will support and this motion, and to have ADHD recognized, and advocating and to the ministry, and to have ADHD be recognized as an exceptionality.
Does anybody else have a comment, like to add a comment or have some thoughts? Okay, Rebecca, you're in support. Anybody else? Diane? Okay, at this point in time, I'm seeing, obviously, Lisa, great, thank you. I'm seeing that, okay, I'm seeing lots of support. So I'd like to, at this point in time, Joanna, if you'd like to put forward a motion, and we'll see if somebody will second it, and we'll take a vote.
Okay, so I might need some assistance with the wording, but something to the effect that the chair of SEAC write a letter to the Minister of Education to advocate for the inclusion of ADHD and or all neurodevelopmental disorders in the category of exceptionalities.
Great. Would anybody like to second that motion? Lucille?
I'd like to second.
Okay, great. And can we take a vote then, please? Anybody in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, so I'm just going to write all these names down just so we have everybody. but it appears that the motion has passed.
It's carried.
Okay, I'm just getting the last few down. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, from that list, the motion has passed. So that letter will be drawn up. I'll work with you, Joanna, and to drawing a letter up for submission to the minister.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so now, are there any other questions, SEAC question periods? And Lorna, do we have any questions from the public at this stage?
I believe Joanna was going to talk about one on behalf of Tracy.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, I know Tracy had joined us and may be on, but oh, there she is. She was having some internet issues.
Hello, I can offer that, sure.
Okay, yep.
Okay, here we go. So the question is, I've been trying to understand the process of placement of self-contained classes. As a parent within the special needs community, we have heard frustration time and again from parents whose lives have been disrupted by these forced changes. And the question is referring to how schools are chosen as hosts for self-contained classes and why the locations sometimes change.
Thanks, Tracy, for this question. And I'm going to ask Sean to jump in. This is really work that Sean does with the team in the spring. So Sean, go ahead.
Thanks very much for the question. So to start, I will say that the process we go through is hosted on the HDSB website under our admin procedures. And anyone can look that up from the public. Its heading is actually self-contained classes. So virtually, or what I'm doing is reiterating what's in that admin procedure. But then if there's any follow-up questions, be happy to address those. So given that Halton really has 4 regions within our region, so if we think of Halton Hills, Milton, Oakville, and Burlington, and then we have a number of self-contained classes gifted through behavior, LD classes, life skills, CPP. We try to find spaces in schools in each of those regions, and it's based on the populations and the needs of students for those programs. Those are brought through the IPRC process. Specific to schools, what we're looking at is space in schools. As you know, Halton is always growing and has been for quite some time. So the populations in schools change and the availability of space in those schools changes. That can impact the decision. But we're also looking at the facilities within the schools. And within the past decade, you've probably noticed that our newer schools are being built specifically for certain classes, life skills being one of them. We try and have life skills classes partnered up so that there are at least 2 classes where we can. And sometimes those have to shift based on the needs of the school and the changing boundaries. As new subdivisions grow and as the populations change, we have to move classes around. So in some cases, particularly in our older areas, we have schools that only go to grade 5 or grade 6, and they have self-contained classes. And as those students age out, they can then join other self-contained classes. But then because of that, we have to redistribute based on the age, otherwise we'll be over the cap sizes. So it really is a consideration of what the availability is, or it's going to start with what the need is for the students in the system. Then we look at the spaces in our schools. We look at what the facilities are in those schools. And then we also consider all the other self-contained classes in those schools. And we've increased the number of self-contained classes in the system pretty much every year. So over the past decade, you can imagine the number has increased significantly. And we're considerate of schools being well, they just don't have the space right now as these populations grow. So we want to make sure that we have programs and placement opportunities for students close to home so that they're not having to be in transportation for a significant amount of time in a day. And so what happens is as those programs develop, the placements change. I'm just taking a look at the AP right now. And then in terms of the discussions, we build the classes generally early spring. We start to see the IPRC placements for the upcoming year. And my staff spend a significant amount of time seeing where the students are coming from, their home addresses, trying to minimize their travel time. We look for the opening in the schools as the population shift. We also try our very best to keep students in the schools in the self-contained placements where they are. We rarely move self-contained classes unless there's been a significant population changes in the areas. So, or if there's been a cohort that has aged out of a certain area. So like I said, the grade 5 schools where we have students that need to move on to a school that goes to grade 8. I think that pretty much sums up what the AP is saying. If there's any questions specifically that I can answer.
Tracy, did you have any further questions?
I don't. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean. Erin, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, that was just a leftover from the vote.
Oh, okay.
Apologies.
All right. Sounds good. So sorry for question. So this is from Rebecca. Sorry for a question I feel I should know. Is Down syndrome considered an exceptionality in the Halton District School Board? I believe so. Is it in the intellectual disability criteria? Colette, I'll pass it over to your much wiser.
Yes, so that Down syndrome wouldn't be a specific standalone, but it would fall under the umbrella of an intellectual disability. Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right, so we're now at 9:15, so we're going to kind of try and move through as quickly as we can and try and get through in about 15 minutes. Superintendents Report. We've all received a report from Colette. Do you want to give us a brief summary and then see if there's any questions, Colette?
For sure. Actually, I have a little bit of a show and tell, so I'm going to skip to the outdoor areas. I can't talk and share my screen, so just a second. So we recently had some work done at TA Blakelock, and we're very excited to show the outdoor learning area. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me. Okay, there we go. I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we collaborated with Facilities Services and our own department to design this outdoor learning area. And a huge shout out to Sean, who had a real vision for how students could really take their program outside and learn some daily living skills and enjoy the outdoor area. So I'm going to just click through some slides here. It's a fabulous project. We're really thrilled with it. I do want to highlight that the silver fencing in the back, the construction fencing, is temporary. It has now been removed, but it was up there during construction time. And Sean, as I'm talking, if you want to jump in and talk about a little bit of the vision for the learning that can occur in this area.
Certainly. So as Colette goes through the spaces, you'll see opportunities for, well, there's the gardens, growing some of their foods, some of the things that they can take back into their kitchens. Again, now that COVID is somewhat moving forward and we can start using food again, this will be a great opportunity. But the long-term vision is opportunities for being in the community, practice spaces for things like road safety, for accessing transportation, how to move through our parks, conversational pieces, trying to make an authentic learning environment where students can actually practice here, and this begins the ability to then walk in the community and have those experiences outside.
Super. Thanks, Sean. And let me unshare. And we're looking forward to continuing supporting the development of this type of project at our schools. And so I did link into the report the plans for Georgetown District and their outdoor learning area. And the hope is that that work will be done in the spring. Just a couple more things I'm going to touch on. The Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Child, Community and Social Services, and the Ministry of Health have announced a joint review of PPM 81. This is a very old PPM. It was written in 1984, so it's definitely due an update. This PPM provides a model for provision of school health supports, so administration of medication, toileting, feeding, lifting, those types of things, as well as speech and language services. So there's a few areas of interest for the school board in the update of this PPM, particularly around the administration of medication and what our staff can and cannot do, because certainly some of the requests around supporting medication, particularly rescue medication, are evolving. We're really interested in the services of the LIN, the Local Health Integration Network, particularly in the context of the nursing shortage and its impact on students attending school. And also the separation of speech and language services. So speech services are provided by a third-party provider, Aaron Oak, and language needs are supported by our own school board's speech and language pathologists. So in Halton, we're very fortunate in having a strong working relationship with both the LIN and Aaron Oak for the integration of these services for our students. But we are looking forward to hearing more about the ministry's consultation process so that we can work to improve the delivery of service for our families. So we don't have any information on what that consultation process will look like at this point, but I will certainly share with SEAC as we learn more about that. This Saturday, December 11th, is Educational Assistant Appreciation Day. And I would like to take this opportunity to really recognize and thank the hard work of our educational assistants across the system. Our EAs are such important caring adults in the lives of our students with special education needs, and we honestly could not do this work without all of them. And just two last things. Congratulations to Trustee Shuttleworth, who is now Chair Shuttleworth at the recent election of our board. And as we close out 2021, I want to thank SEAC for your time, your passion, and your commitment to SEAC, but more importantly to our students. And I wish that you all enjoy a break over the holidays and enjoy some time with friends and family. I'm happy to take any questions.
So are there any questions for Colette at this time? Melissa.
Hi there. Just in keeping, I think the new park at Blakelock is amazing. My son is an attendee there, and I've firsthand had a chance to witness it. I think first and foremost, the location, sort of tucked away where it is absolutely perfect, and it's really wonderful space. So well done. Second thing, you were speaking of the nursing shortage, but in particular also is the busing issue with this, particularly the special needs busing. I think at this point for wheelchair drivers in Oakville, there's only 2 drivers right now that can take any of the kids in the wheelchairs. So at the end of the day, we're working on 45 minutes to 50 minutes of delays happening at the end of each and every day. They're feeling bad. They're run ragged. Today, for example, the teachers at my son's school called to say the bus, it had already been 20 minutes late. She called to say that the bus was going to be another 20 to 30 minutes late. And so the option there was, do you want to come down and get him yourself? Living only 10 minutes away, we did, but that's not really an effective solution. So I'm just wondering, I know it's a bus situation. I know it's with the bus company, can't hire enough drivers, but is there some kind of pressure or something we can put on that? Because I can only imagine if he then had an hour bus ride after being delayed for an hour after school, just how miserable he would be when he got home. So.
Yeah, thank you for that, Melissa. If you don't mind, I'll take that back and get some more information from the superintendent that manages that portfolio, Superintendent Nagoy, and see if she can provide any additional information or insight into that issue.
Great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, at that time is now time for association reports. Does anybody have anything that they would like to raise from their associations? No. Well, at this time, I will do my typical LDAHH report. Just to let everybody know, we do have registration is now open for our 11th annual Solutions for Learning conference. We have 4 keynote speakers, 12 breakout speakers talking about all different types of supports and learning strategies, technologies for students with learning disabilities and or ADHD. We have speakers on more obscure LDs like nonverbal LD. We also have speakers on universal design for learning. And we are very fortunate that we have a speaker on the Ontario Human Rights Commission's Right to Read, which is due out in February, just before our conference, and our speaker was actually involved in reviewing the recommendations that have been put forward. So we're looking forward to a fulsome discussion about how teaching literacy may need to change in light of the Right to Read report coming out. So if anybody wants to register, www.ldahh.ca. Okay, so finally we have next we have the Trustees Report.
Thank you. I will be delivering the report tonight. Hello, everyone. Last week, the Board of Trustees held the annual organizational meeting, and as Superintendent Reddick said, we welcome Margot Shuttleworth as the chair for the upcoming year, and we also thank wholeheartedly outgoing chair Andrea Grabantz for her tireless work on behalf of the board. And I will be continuing in the vice chair role for the upcoming year. The school, formerly known as Ryerson Public School, has been renamed Maquendum, meaning to remember in the Anishinaabe language. Secondary students in North Oakville Secondary Plan area will be redirected to TA Blakelock starting in the 2022-2023 school year in order to address the capacity challenges at White Oak Secondary School. But please note that CPP students will not be redirected. This week has been declared Identity and Human Rights Week by the HDSB, and this coincides with the 3rd Human Rights Symposium, which will take place on Thursday and Friday of this week. The symposium is focused on identity and human rights and will explore how intersecting identities impact access and enjoyment of human rights. And lastly, past Chair Grabantz recently wrote a letter on behalf of the board to the Minister of Education regarding the delays to new school builds and the associated impacts on students, staff, and the community. And just to echo Superintendent Reddick's comments, thank you so much to all SEAC members for partnering with us here at SEAC and for supporting students in so many ways. And all the best of the season to you, your families, and your organizations. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions? No. Okay, so finally we just have our committee reports. I'll go through the list of the standing committees and ask for any updates from our SEAC reps on these committees. The Parent Involvement Committee. No report this time. Accessibility Coordinating Committee.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Equity and Inclusive Education Advisory Steering Committee. Nothing at this time. And Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Steering and Advisory Committee.
Nothing at this time, but we're going to have a meeting on Thursday this week. So next month when we meet, I probably will have something to report back.
Great, thank you very much. So finally, we're at item 5.0, any next agenda or order paper items. Is there anything that committee members would like added? We just, Superintendent Ruddock just mentioned about PPAM 81 and providing us with some more information on that. Are there other items that people would like to see on the agenda going forward? If you want to, obviously during the month and something comes up, you can always let us know as we prepare for the following agenda. Okay, well, with that, it is now, we've got to the end of the agenda. I would like to once again thank everybody for their time and effort and continued commitment to SEAC and all of our exceptional students. It's wonderful to work with a group of people who are also passionate about meeting the needs of every student in our school system. So I wish you, like everybody else, the best of the season. Please take time to spend it with your loved ones. Stay safe, and we shall see you in the new year. And with that, at 9:29, just before 9:30, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.